Hello, everyone. I am live. Sorry for the delay. I My internet was crapping up on me, and it took forever to get everything set up. So sorry about that. I have no clue, as usual, what I'm going to talk about in this stream. After all, it is open discussions, which is a format that my audience likes. So whatever I talk about, well, I will. I do have some topics on mine, but we'll have to see where this goes. And depending on the topic, as the per usual, if I do a really good topic and I think it deserves its own video, I will do what I normally do, edit the part of the stream as a separate video, and yeah, we'll see how things go. In all honesty. Now, let's see. Just waiting for some people to show up. Hello, Christopher Parker. Nice to see you. Now, sheesh, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. It's interesting though what's been happening for the past like week or two regarding like the people that we all know who they are, constantly exposing themselves for being, you know, anti-Marxists. I mean, seriously, like, oh god. Oh yeah. Oh god, of course they are. I don't. That's dumb. A better tomorrow. That's just stupid. All these right middle these middle class fuckheads. You know, they don't even understand anything about politics. All these nerds complaining about, oh my god, Superman, doesn't say the American way. No, Superman is fights for more than just America. He fights for every citizen in the world. And anyone that like says otherwise doesn't know the fucking character. It's just more pointless outrage. Complaining about the littlest shit. It's like these people do they just do nothing but complain. They do nothing but complain about the stupidest shit. It's like it's all for clicks. That's all it is. Superman this, Superman that. It's like, come on, who cares? A better tomorrow? Who cares? Seriously, who cares? Like, if all it's like these people are pathetic. These people are nothing but a bunch of man children complaining about the smallest things. Like, who fucking cares if Superman changes his phrase from the American way to a better tomorrow? Who cares? Last time I checked, the world isn't America. These fucking stupid fucking idiots don't even know anything about freaking the world. The world doesn't revolve just around America. It's like, yeah, these are the kind of people that fucking we're supposed to, appeal to, according to the Mappanites. It's just so stupid. Caleb Maupin would call Superman an ultra. But okay, by the way, Superman is an ultra. He's an ultra. He's an ultra. Superman's an ultra for not supporting America, for not saying the American way. Superman's an ultra. The modern day Superman is an ultra. Nobody's gonna change my mind. These are my rules. Superman's an ultra. But in all seriousness, though, like right wing nerds complaining about the dumbest things, I just find this hilarious to me. Like, of all the things they complain about the dumbest shit. It never ceases to amaze me. Like when you like look at it from an outsider's perspective, like I am at this point, because I see nerd culture as reactionary garbage, because that's exactly what it is. It's reactionary. It's a bunch of privileged individuals complaining about the stupidest shit. It's like they can never not complain about something because it's all they're fucking grifters. They really are. Doesn't matter that their audience doesn't know that. That is true. That is true. And you know what? Another thing, it's like these people are so homophobic and transphobic. They complain about the dumbest shit. It's like, who cares if a character in a comic book is bisexual or gay? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who fucking cares? These people like do not care about anything. I hate to break it to you, Christopher Parker. Nerd culture has always been reactionary and always been toxic. Nerd culture is always been a cesspool of reaction. Like every time, like anything that's remotely left wing that is out in fucking the open, they fucking act like, oh my god, this person is a hardcore communist. It's like these people, anything to the left of fucking Ronald Reagan is considered fucking too. It's like too far to the left in terms of politics. It's ridiculous. It's like, and the very notion that there's people who aren't that far removed from these reactionaries. Oh, geek culture has been left wing and always has been because all these stories go against right wing, you know, stuff, whatever you want to say. It's like first off, one, no, just because the right may enjoy stuff that has left leanings doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. It doesn't mean anything because they will always twist it into something that, like anti-capitalism. They'll always say like like big brain Tim Pool will say, "Oh, it's actually communism that it's critiquing." It's like they'll just bend over backwards to defend capitalism. It's like it doesn't matter if these stories are anti-capitalist. It wouldn't even matter if they're anti-fascist. It doesn't matter to these people. They will always twist left leaning works and make it seem like it's actually right wing when it never has been. It's like it doesn't matter. It's like it doesn't matter if some of these people were left wing who created these works. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I don't understand why we have to die on this hill that all these fandoms were left wing before this and this and this. No, there's always been a huge right wing component in all these fandoms. There always has been. There are some exceptions like Star Trek. There are exceptions to this. But Star Trek is a completely different kind of fandom than something like Star Wars, Marvel, or DC. Like, of course, Star Wars in general has always had a huge fascistic, element in the fandom. I mean, look at all of the pro-imperial, people in the Star Wars fandom. Look at all of the, people that simp for the Empire or do have memes that the Empire did nothing wrong, or people that defend the actions of fictional fascist governments or fascist dictators. It's like, I'm sorry, but if you simp for a fictional fascist, I don't think you're that far behind in the real that you're not a real world fascist. And I think people need to wake the fuck up and look at how things truly are and stop actually acting like, oh, this fascism and fandom is a recent phenomenon. It's not recent. It's always been there. It's always existed. And not to mention all these works are made under capitalism. So yeah, you may have things like Star Wars, which George Lucas is a liberal. Let's be real. George Lucas is a liberal. He always has been a liberal, and the fact that he may have some anti-fascist stuff in Star Wars or stuff that's anti imperialist and a critique on the American century and the prequels and all that other stuff, that Star Wars did not go far enough. If it was a communist that did all these things, it would have gone far deeper than what George Lucas did. And I love Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars. I've been a fan of Star Wars for all my life pretty much. And I can tell you that Star Wars' critique on imperialism and fascism is kind of surface level compared to what it could have done. But then again, we live under a capitalist society, and to do these kind of critiques, you're kind of limited because if you do a blatant anti-capitalist or anti-imperialist critique in modern media, it would never see the light of day. In fact, I could probably see that's one of the reasons why George Lucas was as hated as much by Hollywood as he was, because George Lucas was one of the few directors that was willing to openly do films that criticize the American empire, but do it through fiction, like the empire being America and vice versa. Why do you think the sequel trilogy is so like non-existent in terms of its like political themes? Because it's non-existent. The Because there's no way Disney doesn't know that the Star Wars fandom isn't dumb and don't understand the difference between what's political and what isn't, because they like the original films, so they don't know or want to know that the original films are anti-fascist, and the prequels show the rise of fascism. Now, if we lived in a different universe where George Lucas did Star Wars in the Soviet Union, we probably have a far different beast than we do today. But Star Wars, in a way, its critique on fascism and imperialism is held back because of capitalism. Because media in general, made under capitalism, there's a limit of what you can criticize and to what extent you can. Otherwise, you're just going to get censored. Because Hollywood is controlled. It's controlled by the CIA. A lot of these films that we see, the CIA takes a look at them. So does the military. You can't just do a movie that criticizes the American state without the state having a look at the movie script. The only way you could actually do that is you have to be outside of Hollywood. That is true. George Lucas, yes, he was a genius. I think George Lucas, I love George, but I'm saying this as as a hardcore anti-imperialist and anti-fascist, that George Lucas, even he has his limits of what he could do under the framework of capitalism. He can't do a movie that openly criticizes the U.S. government as hard as I think he could have done had he not been in America. Star Wars, the only reason it's capable of getting a fan base that's full of so many, wannabe fucking fascists is American fascists. They see themselves as the rebels. I'm not the Rebel Alliance. I'm saying they see themselves as the rebels. They see themselves as rebelling against, in their mind, a whatever made up conspiracy theory that they come up with, like with imaginary enemies. That's just what Star Wars isn't as open with its anti-fascism as something like Star Trek. Star Trek is overtly anti-fascist. Yeah, Star Trek may have some problematic and reactionary stances on issues, and there are some episodes that are questionable. But Star Trek as a whole is pretty anti-fascist, far more than Star Wars is. Yes, you have Star Trek fans in the fandom that are fascists, but the fascist Trek fans are so small compared to the Star Wars fans that, like, they're just a minority. Like, yeah, you'll see them try to convert the Star Trek fandom into fascism, but they're never going to have a majority because Star Trek, unlike Star Wars, is pretty clear of what its message is. And Star Wars, even though there is a clear anti-fascist message, anti-imperialist, it just isn't as clear because Americans do not see themselves as the bad guys. They don't see themselves as the aggressors. They can't imagine being just like the Galactic Empire. Because America is the Galactic Empire, and in every single way, America is what the Galactic Empire is in Star Wars. Imperialist, genocidal, helps supports evil everywhere it comes. It causes death and destruction. That's the Empire. That's the Empire in a nutshell. And that's America. And if you were to tell your average Star Wars fan that America is an empire, they won't believe it. Americans do not and we cannot see themselves as the empire. That's the reason why, there's so many fascists in the Star Wars fandom, and I'm going by from the American camp because Americans cannot see themselves as fascists or see themselves as the evil empire. So they'll project the empire onto other countries like China, the Soviet Union, even though America in every single aspect is the empire. It's tragic to say this, and I hate to say this as someone that was part of the Star Wars fandom. It's it's a dumpster fire of reaction. And I don't even want to comment on that stupid shit with Haas. Oh, Antifa are the real fascists. They're white supremacists and Trump is a leftist. I'm not joking. He actually said that. I'm not joking. Of course, for those of you who don't know who Haas is, don't bother. He's just some clown. But let's just say he's somebody that actually says that Trump is a leftist. Yeah, he totally would. And I don't even know what the point of this segment of the stream was. Now, I was considering ranting about a video game probably sometime in this stream. I might, and I'll probably edit that as a separate stream as a rant, but oh god. But I have no thoughts. He's just your stereotypical celebrity. In all honesty, I just don't really want to talk about it. I know there's a strike going on with Netflix, but I have not done enough research on it. The only thing I know it has to do with him and his transphobic comments, and Netflix, not handing him for it. That's so ridiculous. That is insanity. In all honesty, Red Sun though is I don't think it's a bad comic, better than the movie, which is nothing more than just like more American-ish propaganda. I don't know. Red Sun's all right. I mean, I did like some of the aesthetic of Red Sun. I did like the idea of a communist Superman, but yeah, it was questionable. I guess I'll just rant about Mega Man X6 like I promised, because there's people that just that like to hear me talk about it. For those of you who don't know what Mega Man X6 is, well, it's a game in the Mega Man franchise, which is It's the sixth game of a sub series called Mega Man X, which was the first Mega Man sub series, which essentially, unlike the 8-bit Mega Man games where you just jump and shoot, slide and charge shot, Mega Man X gives the Meg X the ability to dash, wall jump, and air dash, and various other things, and eventually Zero, who has his own abilities. The series was originally going to end with the fifth installment with Mega Man X5. Now, the first four X games are classics. They're undeniably some of the best Mega Man games ever made. X5 was the start of the decline of the X series, though I love X5. It's my favorite game, Mega Man game of all time. I know it's flawed. I understand that. So when Mega Man X6 came out, which is clearly a cash grab by Capcom because they can't just let all good things just end. Yeah, it's just another symptom of capitalism. Can't let something end when it already ended on a high note. Mega Man X6, of course, this argument can be levered at X7 too. It's just livered with bad game design everywhere, cheap deaths, fucking fucking spikes everywhere, fucking the game requiring you to take damage to rescue certain Reploids. The fact that you have to, depending on what you do in the game, like can make things harder for you. Like the game, you could never catch a break. And not to mention fucking the overemphasis on spikes. Like you pretty much have to complete all the Matrix in order to actually do gate stages. And the gate stages are not only fucking hard as shit, they're tedious. You could die almost in every single part of the level. Then you have to deal with one of the worst bosses in video game history in Hymax, which is a theme that's so goddamn irritating on your ears that you'll fucking probably want to freaking blow your brains out when you're done beating Hymax. But when you're done beating Hymax, that fucking shitty level isn't over because you still have to do another long segment and fight Gate, who's probably one of the easiest bosses in video game history, but he's so fucking boring and tedious that you're just gonna want to fucking kill yourself. And then the rest of the X6 is just the typical thing you see from a Mega Man game: a boss rush, you fight the final boss, boom. The game sucks. I don't understand. Like, there's a fan base for X6. I don't understand why. It's a shitty game. It's poorly designed, and it was basically a classic example of, you know, of capitalism not allowing things to end on a high note. It has to continue because, that's just what capitalism does. Never lets things end on a high note. It has to milk it for all it's worth, and then we leave the X series, which originally had a cohesive ending in X5 with a cliffhanger at the end of X8. Thank you, Mega Man X6. Now go die in a fucking fire. And same thing with X7. But that's my short rant on Mega Man X6. Now, to get back on other topics. I don't see a reason why the mopping crowd would use the left outright system. Have you seen the? Oh, I have not seen it, but I do know the political compass is fucking bullshit. I mean, seriously, like there's some times where I see myself as libertarian left, or I'm on the center. Like the way I answer questions, it's like it's such bullshit. Like the I don't believe in the political compass thing. It's bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's confusing because the way you answer questions places you at a certain point in the spectrum. I just think it's horseshit. It's a honestly, I think it's the most dumbest thing that was ever designed because depending on how you answer the question, you could be hard left, and not be a right wing, or it could be a hard left and be somehow center right. I think it's bullshit. It's so bullshit. It really is bullshit. It really is bullshit. I didn't even know there was a new trailer with Robert. I didn't even know that. What do you think of people freaking over bisexual Superman? You know, Superman's son. I think it's dumb, and I've already covered that. Let's see, yeah, it's such bullshit. Yeah, they are. It is too vague. It's like the way the whole thing is set up is just so dumb. It's like it's one of the worst ideas he could have ever came up with. It really is one of the dumbest ideas. It's like, oh, you answer this question in this vague way, and then you get the opposite of what you were answering. It's like, wait, I'm not a libertarian. I'm nowhere near libertarian, yet I was placed on the libertarian, left. It's like, no, 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 no. There is no libertarian left. That's fucking bullshit. You either are anarchists or you're a communist. There is no in between in these things. Libertarianism and our anarchism are not even compatible. They're not even the same damn thing. It's skewed and it's purposely made that way. It's like it's confusing, and we should just disregard it completely. I didn't even know there was a Shrek series. Yeah, that's right. The political compass is fucking trash. It really is trash. No matter how many times I, take it, I get a different fucking placement on there. It's like I'm hard left and I'm placed like closer to the center. It's like what the hell? Like it doesn't even ask, enough questions either. It's like blah it's like what would you do blah 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 blah. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. I should watch that. I will watch that when I have the chance. It would probably be a good idea. Oh yeah. I wish I could rant about that, but I don't know if any of my, you know, yeah, I'm trying to keep this as vague as possible. I don't know if any of my coworkers could watch this video, so I'm not going to say any more about that because yeah, I can't and I don't want to endanger my own employment. But yeah, that is not too far off. Like you basically do like the job interview in a lot of ways is a personality test because they want to know how much of an ass kisser you're going to be in the job interview. They want to know how much you're going to kiss their fucking ass. Like because that's what these fucking employers want. They just want people to kiss their ass, say nothing, be a good little boy, and not say anything. They want us to be a good little wage slave. And that I just ran into an interesting woman like yesterday, and it just shows us how insane like the indoctrination with Americans are. Like holy fucking shit. Like I know it's nothing new or shocking to anybody who's countered crazy, libertarians or Republicans or whatever you want to call these people. But the insane propaganda you hear from these people, like, oh, don't complain. If you have a job and you work, don't complain. It's like, yeah, be a good little wage slave. Yeah, I am being more convinced at this point, and I'm just being real that that there's like little to no hope for the American population because there's so many of them in this country that are happy, even being a wage slave or or licking the boots of their corporate masters. It's like the white, you know, masses, a good chunk of them, even the ones who are poor, and I hate to say this, they're satisfied with with the way things are. And I don't think it's like that with most of these people, but the ones who really had it good when they were growing up, but are poor now, there's no hope helping these people. You're not going to convince these crazies who believe in this Cold War horse shit to believe in socialism or even like patriotic socialism. Oh, I'm a communist, but an American patriot. It's like you're never going to convince people like that. You're never going to. Like the most revolutionary part of the white proletariat are what society calls the trailer trash. They're the most revolutionary of that part of the population, not these white middle class minded people that think that all you have to do is work hard and not complain and things will be all right. You're not going to win these people over because they're too far gone. They're too far gone. Like the infantile idea of, oh, if we just try to act like Republicans and appeal to the Republicans, that they'll actually listen to our ideas and support our ideas. No, 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 and no, no, no. Anybody that says that stupid horse shit hasn't talked to these people. I have too many times to count. And I can tell you right now, you're not going to convince these people to believe in your stupid patriotic socialist bullshit. They don't want it. Even like the poorest members of the population that buy into this stupid fucking propaganda that's been fed to them since childhood, you're not going to fucking win these people over. They're too far gone. There's some people that you can reach who are part of this population, but most of them, you cannot reach them. You cannot reach them because they don't want to be reached. They actually like things how they are. They don't want to see things change. They can't stand the idea of not looking down on somebody because that's what they are in a nutshell. They love looking down on people. They love looking down and punching down at the weak because they have this mindset that if you are poor, you are at fault and you deserve it and you shouldn't complain. You should be a good, obedient little wage slave and just do what you're told and don't say anything. You're not going to convince these people. Like, there's a huge chunk of Americans that you could talk to that no matter how much you talk to them, they will never listen. This is about defeatism or giving up. This is about reality. The poorest of the population that have never experienced middle class life, they're the ones we could talk to, and they'll likely listen, even if they disagree with us. A good chunk, if you live in a conservative area like I do, Orange County is it's the most conservative part of California. It's insanely conservative. It is so conservative that freaking it is a futile task to get these people on your side. It's futile because they don't want to listen. If you can get a conversation out of a few of them that are willing to see your perspective and are willing to reconsider their backwards ideas, great, do that. But don't make them the priority. The priority should always be the most exploited of the population, the most exploited. Now, a bunch of people that have had a somewhat good life, not people who have never suffered poverty or who've only experienced poverty, when they're like in their adult years, like in their later adult years. No, we don't want to cater to those people. We want to cater to the people that actually understand what poverty is. Because there's a good chunk of Americans that worship poverty. And I'm not even exaggerating here. I hate to say this, but it's true. There's people that enjoy their suffering, that enjoy being where they're at, that enjoy licking the boots of their corporate masters. It's a disturbing thing to say, and it's a harsh thing to say. I know I'm just speaking this as someone that actually recently just had an encounter with one of those people, but these people are insane. Like, there's people out there right now who have the potential to actually we can get these people organized and turn them into socialist instead of wasting our time with people who are too far gone. We have precious time, and in limited time we can do this. Fascism is rising, and we're seeing more naked fascism more and more and more. Yes, that is true. Yes. And as anyone who says, otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. I've lived in Orange County for 30 years. For 3 of those years, I lived in Jefferson City, Missouri. But throughout my entire life, I lived in California. 30 years I've lived here. And there's people, a lot of them that are supportive of the American empire. They're content with the status quo. Most of the people you're going to get that will not be happy with how things are disgruntled with how things are going to usually be the homeless. Isn't it funny how the lumpen are always the ones that are usually the most willing to see how bad things truly are, who are willing to actually listen to you? If you all you have to do is treat them with respect. Yet the Maupinites and Haas, they see these people as scum, that they should be exterminated. And anyone that disagrees with me doesn't have the experience. It doesn't live in California or in Orange County, especially. Orange County is one of the most reactionary parts of my state. Not too far where I live, there's a fascist flag that's flown. And you know what that flag is? The flag of the fascist regime of South Vietnam. That's being flown. Not that far from where I live. There's a fascist flag being flown. And there's other parts of Orange County that has other symbols of fascism, like the Zionist flag is flown, and close to where my mom used to live. Freaking and Huntington Beach is a hive of fucking white supremacist freaking groups in Orange County. One of the biggest in the state, actually. It's like when America starts to become naked fascist, Orange County will be one of the first places they'll be doing it in this state, because it is the most right-wing part of the state. Yeah. Yeah, they are. Exactly, that is exactly what they are. Yeah, I lived in Honey. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I lived in the following places. I'm just gonna say that I lived in, and and I know what I'm talking about because I lived in Orange County pretty much my entire life. You know, I lived in Anaheim, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, And I even lived, in the border between, Huntington Beach and Fountain Valley. And where I live is in a I'm not going to disclose where I live currently, but I live in an area that has a fascist flag of South Vietnam flown not too far where I live. For those of you who do know, well, I'm not going to say, but fascism is, on the rise, and Orange County is no exception. Like, the way the homeless are treated is even worse than it used to be. Like, the treatment of the homeless affects people who are not homeless at all, who just have the appearance of being who may have the appearance of being homeless because, their clothes may look like crap because they because their clothes may look worn out, or their hair may be unkempt, or their beard. It's like you could be housed and still be treated like a homeless person. And that's is a fact. If you've lived in Orange County, you would know that the homeless population are treated like garbage in this part of the state. Like, you have to freaking pay to use a restroom. Yeah, to have human decency, you got that deprived from you for being homeless, especially in Orange County. I'm pretty sure it's like that in other states, and it's probably even worse. But in Orange County, more places in increasing numbers are requiring you to have to pay in order to use a restroom, because they technically can't have you pay a quarter to use a restroom anymore. So they have to go away. So they have a way around it by having you be a customer. It's freaking disgusting. Not to mention the amount of anti-vaxxers that are in Orange County is scary, and the amount of vaxxers as well, maxers and vaxxers. I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure I said both of them correctly. I don't know, but still, it's like the mentality of these fucking people is ridiculous. And not to mention, God forbid you're poor and you're disabled in Orange County. Fucking Christ. In order to actually get like housing, you have to get a government program. And if you're in a government program, you have to deal with fucking bureaucrats constantly who berate you and gaslight you for every little fucking thing you make. And if you're in a situation, which we all are good at, which we all are from time to time, where we either lose our job, we get sick, or we lose our benefits, even for if it's a short time, we're blamed for stuff that are out of our control. It's like this entire mindset of, Orange County, uh, it reflects that. And Orange County is not a place I recommend being. It's a disgusting place that the way the people act towards each other, like the way they treat each other in this, part of the country. Southern California is a shithole. It really is a shithole. When I lived up north for a few months, it changed how I looked at, Orange County completely. And unless you've actually lived here, you wouldn't know what I'm talking about, because I speak from personal experience at Orange County. There's no revolutionary potential in Orange County. There is none. Doesn't matter where I'm at in Orange County. You may have some pockets, of places where you may be able to, talk to people or organize people in Orange County, but you're not going to be able to be effective here. You're not going to be effective here because of the reactionary culture of California. And I know people are going to throw, oh, but the Soviet Union was reactionary. before the Soviet Union existed. The conditions for the Soviet Union were so much different than America. And Orange County in particular, you never lived here. You don't know the culture. You don't know the people. You don't know anything unless you actually physically lived here for as long as I have. I lived here for 30 years. And for that amount of time, a lot has changed in Orange County. Orange County has become more right wing as time has gone on. It's one of the most right wing parts of the fucking country. And of course, the stereotypical reactionary that will comment on this will likely say, leftists ruined Orange County, blah 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 blah, like it. Sorry, my internet crapped on me. All right. Anyway, I lost my train of thought there, so I'll probably just end it here by at least that segment by just saying that Orange County is a fucked up place. You have to live here to actually understand why that is. If you haven't experienced the culture or the people firsthand, you wouldn't know why I say what I say. Orange County, there is like very little if any revolutionary potential in where I live. I've met people that are disgruntled and disgusted with the system, but again, there's so few of those people. Like Orange County in a nutshell, to thrive in Orange County, you have to be middle class. If you're not middle class in Orange County, you are going to fall into poverty. You'll be stuck with shitty fucking apartments where you have to cram, like live in places where you have to share a room or two with a few other people, like a fucking shitty apartment that's will cost you like fucking $2,000 to $3,000 a month. Like, unless you're middle class, you're not going to thrive in Orange County. It's a fucking shithole. It's a financial cesspit. And if you come here, you're likely going to be trapped. The only thing Orange County has over other parts of California is its transportation system, but even then, that's fucking shit. So I'm just going to move on to the next session. Section. Well, I would like to ask them that if socialism never works, why would the United States governments and why would the CIA, why would they spend trillions of dollars in the past like almost century now, trying to destabilize governments that try to establish socialism. Why would they spend so much money on propaganda? Why would they constantly overthrow socialist governments? Why would they not simply let socialism fail on its own? And then they can say, "Oh, socialism would never work." And another response is, if socialism would never work, then why is it that every time socialism has, been reverted to capitalism, why has the quality of life been worse? I mean, it's like, okay, let's compare the former Soviet Union to modern day Russia. Arguably, the Soviet Union, even during its revisionist years, was arguably better quality of life wise than modern day Russia. Or compare Tsarist Russia to the Soviet Union of the 1950s and 60s. It's not a comparison. It really isn't. Those who claim that socialism would never work ignore the quality of life improvements, how objectively life under Tsarist Russia was hell. It was terrible. The life expectancy was really low. Literacy rate was like almost non-existent. Under Stalin, that stopped. You had almost universal literacy. The life expectancy went up, and this was the span of 30 years. And look what happened after the Soviet Union was dissolved. The quality of life went, basically plummeted. Alcoholism was on the rise, prostitution on the rise. Like, the Soviet Union may not have been the perfect country. It became revisionist, throughout, towards the second half of the 20th century. But objectively, the Soviet Union was nowhere near, you know, as bad as Western historians would make you believe. It did commit some crimes, but it also did a lot of good for its people. And those who say socialism never works ignore what life was like before socialism and after capitalism is restored. Because look, another example. If we want to, let's say, ignore the Soviet Union. Look at Cuba. Cuba before Castro and Cuba after Castro. The quality of life in Cuba it's not even a comparison. That Cuba under Castro was a far better country to live. The quality of life was much higher. Literacy was almost eliminated completely. Life expectancy went up. Cuba trained some of the best doctors in the world, and they still do this today. Now, I can't comment, too much on Cuba in the modern day because I don't have enough information. But if I'm just gonna say, look at a country before and after, it's obvious, the difference. And of course, if they want to give that credit to capitalism, well, that's a lie, because capitalism, every time it's been restored in a former socialist country, it's far worse. And that's my thoughts on that, Sub Money. All right. I don't like James Bond, so I'm not going to comment. And I have no comment on cigars. Okay, like I said, my knowledge of Cuba, I'm still reading about about Cuba, so I still have a lot to learn. I don't know enough. You mean the T3 books that were published in the early 2000s? That was essentially Terminator 3 before Terminator 3 existed. I've only read the first book of the T2 trilogy, so I can't comment on all of them. But I enjoyed the first one. Honestly, the only James Bond movie I like is Austin Powers. Because all James Bond is to me is essentially an imperialist power fantasy. All right. Yeah, James Bond takes itself way too seriously. I hope not. I think Obi-Wan Kenobi needs to be its own show. Now, for those of you who want to probably hear what my thoughts on some of the Disney Plus shows, I'm just going to talk about my thoughts on Marvel What If, because I did watch the entire first season of Marvel What If, and well, if you want my thoughts about it, I'll give it to you right now. I liked Marvel What If. I thought, it was it was cool and it was fun. We got some really interesting episodes. I think there was some cool concepts I'd like to see expanded upon. I think Captain Carter, I would like to see that probably expanded upon to see, maybe have that be its own series to see what that one change to the MCU canon would have done, just having her be Carter instead of Steve Rogers being Captain America. So yeah, that's just my thoughts. I thought I could give my thoughts on individual episodes. I thought the first one was okay. I would have preferred a more original story because to me it was just a retelling of the first Avenger, except replace the protagonist with Carter instead of Steve, and we essentially have the same story. It would, I mean, it left the doors open for a interesting. Okay, well, how would this have changed the MCU canon? How would this have changed her interactions with in a relationship with Tony Stark? How would the story changed? I actually wouldn't mind seeing an alternate MCU, told, in that way. That has a potential for its own series because that one change would change a lot. The second episode with T'Challa Star Lord, it was okay. It was a fun little episode. I mean, I, I'm not the biggest fan of that episode, but it was cool. The third episode, I believe it was a murder mystery, or I think it was, or am I confusing that with episode 4? But yeah, I enjoyed the episode that was basically a murder mystery of all the Avengers getting murdered prior to them becoming the Avengers, with the exception of Captain America. It was an interesting episode, considering that I didn't know who was behind the murders of all the Avengers, and the twist at the end was actually a really good one, and I actually really enjoyed that. It was a really cool twist. I know people complain, "Oh, why does Tony Stark have to die in every episode?" Well, I what I like about this, it gives other heroes a chance to shine and shows just because Tony Stark dies doesn't mean it's the end of the world. That they could still save the world without him. Then you have like probably my this is not going to be a popular opinion with people. I actually thought the Marvel Zombie one was probably my least favorite of these what if episodes because I thought it was kind of dumb. And even though the comic, yo, I know the comic is really popular, I personally think it would have been better as its own individual like series because I think Marvel Zombies in the MCU is out of place. It's like, okay, how would the quantum realm had created a zombie virus that would have basically doomed the entire universe? I just think it's dumb. It was a dumb idea. It was a dumb episode. And in all honesty, in my opinion, I didn't. It was a stupid episode. It should have not. It should have been its own series. There was the episode where what if Tony Stark was saved by Killmonger, and of course I'm gonna probably I'll give my thoughts on that. The episode on its own was what I actually didn't mind the episode, but I'll give my thoughts on why I have issues with this episode, and it's the same I have with the Black Panther movie, but I'll get to that in a bit. Then we had the episode that what if Ultron won. Of course, we had another episode before that. What if Thor was a signal child? But the episode was fun. This Thor was a chill dude. But the episode that I really want to talk about that I felt was my favorite episode of the whole season was what if Ultron won? Because I'm just gonna make it no secret, Age of Ultron was garbage. It was trash. The character of Ultron should have been scarier than what we got. Ultron was essentially he's supposed to be a Terminator. For those who've read the comics, knows that Ultron was scary. And Ultron with the Infinity Stones is even scarier. Like this version of Ultron was badass. He was scary. He was a force to be reckoned with. And I enjoyed that version of the character. Um Another like the final episode of the season, it was like okay. But then again, before I get to that, there's one episode I actually forgot, and that is the Doctor Strange episode, which introduced a concept of the MCU which I found interesting. A absolute point in time. Like when for those of you who don't know the episode, essentially Doctor Strange, it was an episode what if he lost his heart instead of his hands? Is essentially what if he was close if he actually didn't value his work more than the love of his life, and she died, and he tries to bring her back, and no matter what he did, no matter what he tried to change, it always led to her death. And this version of Doctor Strange, we see his downfall, and it's actually a good episode because we actually feel sorry for him. And the reason why I've had to bring this up because it's related to the final episode of the season where you had the Watcher, which was introduced in this series, gathered Avengers from across the multiverse to stop Ultron, who was a universal threat. Now, all the episodes were basically connected in here, even the zombie episode. And the thing I really liked about this episode is again seeing different versions of characters teaming up. But my biggest criticism of this episode and it is, of course, I'm going to save this as a separate section, maybe for another time regarding the character of Killmonger. I felt what they did was character assassination because Marvel was scared of how popular Killmonger was, and they just made him off to be as this stereotypical, oh, I'm power hungry, like, and I don't care if his character is different from the comic book, considering that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is its own thing compared to the comics, and Killmonger was more popular than other villains for good reason. Because if you really look at Killmonger, he wasn't really the villain, but again, I'll save that for a different video. But overall, despite some of those complaints I may have had, I think Marvel What If was an enjoyable experience, and I don't intend to edit this as a separate stream because I don't think this, is a worthy segment because it's not really something I want to edit. What if? Caleb Moffitt as a mouse? Oh my god. Oh god. Oh god. Caleb. Caleb has a. What the fuck? What kind of alternate reality would that? I don't even know in what reality that would happen. Him as a Maoist be. No, I don't even want to think about it because it's ridiculous. It would never happen in a million years. It would never happen in a million years. It really wouldn't. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do with that. Who's going to be the villain of Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Now, as for Star Wars Visions, I have not seen it yet, so I cannot comment. So that's going to probably be for a Jedi's Cantina video if I do when I eventually do Star Wars Visions. I Andre who? Andre who? I'm sorry. Oh, Andre Sedino. No. One of them is a white supremacist and the other is a neoliberal. No, thank you. I refuse to. I'm not friends with fascists. An open world Star Wars game. I don't know how that would work, honestly, considering how massive the Star Wars universe is. I personally think if you did an open world game, but it would have to be you have to scale things down because it's too big. And I don't know if you could really do an open world Star Wars game unless you had it concentrated like in a few locations and a few planets. Like maybe if you did a Knights of the Old Republic remake, you made it more open world. You had the areas be more open. Because I just don't think you can do a large open world game with Star Wars. The universe is too large. I have no thoughts of the Dune movie except what I've seen from every trailer that it looks hype. I've been looking forward to the Dune movie, for a long time now. I've seen the original Dune movie, the one in the 80s, which was terrible. Kids, if I I already like did my own thought. I already did my own video on it, but since barely anyone watched it, and I might as well just talk about what I think of it here. Dune. The first Dune movie was just bad. It really was bad. Yeah, the set pieces, were good for the time. The cast they chose for the characters was good, and well, except the Baron. The Baron was like way over the top. Like I couldn't take him seriously. The the movie itself, even like adaptation aside, just isn't good. Like the aesthetic is just, it looks good, but it doesn't look like Dune. Like they got so many things wrong with the lore of Dune. Like everybody had blue eyes, and I Dune to me, the movie just it was a huge example on how a lot of people did not understand Dune when that movie was made. Like Paul Atreides was never a Christ-like figure. He never was. The first Dune book in itself was so decedes to Paul's downfall. Like everything that went wrong with the Dune universe after the first Dune novel happened because things got out of control. Dune, the entire message of Dune was how dangerous a cult of personality could lead, and how powerful charismatic individuals can cause more death and suffering than any people, and you have to be careful of charismatic leaders. That was the message of Dune. On its own, yes, if you consider the first Dune novel the only novel in this, worth reading, even still, if you actually think that Paul is a hero, you've never read Dune. You don't understand Dune. Like Dune Messiah, I would consider it the last Jedi of its day. It subverted expectations. It subverted everything you would expect from the first Dune novel. Like when I first went through Dune Messiah, I expected Paul, to continue to be the Jesus-like figure that was pushed in the first book, but it went the opposite direction. We learned that Paul, caused more suffering, more death, and destruction than any dictator in human history, according in the Dune universe, and only a short amount of time. Paul Atreides was a flawed human being, and it showed that Paul was human. He was not a hero at all, and in fact, it could be debated if Paul was a good person at all. And his story is tragic in a way because it shows, good intentions could lead to devastating consequences. Paul is, one of the most interesting characters in fiction. He's like a warning against charismatic figures. Even if they have good intentions, it could lead to death and destruction. Well, okay. I'm talking okay. The first movie is just bad of Dune. I'm going by the first one by David Lynch, not the new one. The one by David Lynch. David Lynch just did not understand, the the book at all. And there was a lot of people in the Dune fandom that didn't understand the first book at all. And it shows. And one thing I will say this, if the new Dune series, if the first movie, when the sequel gets made, it's going to happen. When they do an adaptation of Dune Messiah, how's that going to be received in today's climate? Because if Star Wars fans are going to give fucking Lucasfilm shit because of Luke Skywalker, don't be shocked if they do the same to Paul Atreides, because God forbid they can't, understand fucking basic storytelling. Like, if Rian Johnson really wanted to do a character that has fallen from grace and isn't really a hero and has done some things that actually caused a lot of, death and destruction, he should have read Dune and Dune Messiah. Dune Messiah was a great way to do Last Jedi Luke correctly. If you wanted to go the disillusioned hero route that is not in a good place, Dune Messiah was a great guide. And Dune Messiah, the novel, is one of the most misunderstood aspects of the Dune saga. And I can't recommend the Dune novels enough. The first one is a masterpiece. It's a classic. Some of the best science fiction ever written. In my opinion, I don't know how you could actually capture the epicness of Dune on screen. I'll have to see the first movie. Yes, sorry. I'll have to see the new Dune movie to make a comment, but warning to those who don't know, the first Dune film, at least of the new series, is a adaptation of the first half of the first Dune book, because there's a lot of material in the Dune novel that cannot be done unless you're doing it in multiple parts. So, yeah, we could hopefully the second part will be good, but then again, I have to watch the first part. I'm really looking forward to seeing the new Dune film. I mean, there's a lot to look forward to in Dune. Now, Yeah, that's my thoughts on Dune. If you like to know, if you want to know more about Dune, I suggest you either watch the new movie yourself or read the the first book for yourself. It's some of the greatest science fiction ever, and I highly recommend it. I cannot recommend it enough. And yeah, I don't know how to continue this stream, so if anyone has any suggestions, just do it now. I know the stream has been all over the place, but considering you know the this is in an open format, it inevitably turns out that way. I forgot that I was going to do those. If I had to be real, I may have to redo the entire retrospective altogether of Terminator because I really fucked up on that one. On that ball, I should have basically done. I may have to just redo the entire retrospective because I screwed up because I stopped basically with Terminator Dark Fate. Or I might just do something different, actually. I don't know. Maybe I'll just do Terminate. Maybe instead of doing, if I want to continue my retrospective, maybe I'll just do something different and just do. So I don't just review all the movies separately, but do them all at once because there's similarities. Because Dark Fate was a video reviewed after the movie when the movie came out in theaters. So I don't that's not really part of my retrospective. I if I do continue it, I should. But if I do, I'm probably going to do Salvation next because I want to do something different with Terminator 3 because at this point you have multiple Terminator 3s in Terminator. You have Rise of the Machines, that piece of shit Genesis, and Dark Fate. So I'd have to review them all to compare the two. Which one is the best Terminator 3? It will never become a socialist country. It'll become fascist long before it'll become socialist. Considering, look at Fox News as no further example of fascism being mainstream. Like if Tucker Collerson would fit perfectly you know with the Nazi propaganda machine. America will not become a socialist country. America will turn fascist before it becomes socialist. And I hate to say that, but that's the absolute truth. I see America becoming fascist first because fascism is America as American as apple pie. That's a good question. Does it count as a Terminator 3? I would probably say yes and no. Because Sarah Connor Chronicles is its own thing. It takes emolence from the first two Terminator films, but it's still its own thing. I wouldn't really consider Sarah Connor Chronicles a sequel to Terminator 2 because there's too many things that are different about Sarah Connor Chronicles for it to actually be considered a sequel. Considering the ages of the characters when they were born and the way time travel works in Sarah Connor Chronicles compared to the other Terminator films, I just review Sarah Connor Chronicles as its own entity. It's neither a sequel to the Terminator films nor is it, you know, I don't know what to call it. It's its own thing. It takes aspects of the first two films, but it's not part of the canon of those two films. Yeah, I did. I mean, I never watched Sarah Chronicles fully, but what little I do know about it, it does have some cool concepts that I would have liked to see done in Terminator. And I think the biggest problem with the Terminator franchise, in all honesty, it refuses to evolve. It refuses to do anything new because Terminator 2 was such a success that they just felt we need to do more of the same because Terminator 2 is what everyone liked. Terminator 2 was a one-hit wonder. The first film, yeah, it was a cult hit. There was a lot of people that loved the first film, but it was never a blockbuster like the second film was. The Terminator franchise was never meant to be a blockbuster like Star Wars, Alien, and vice versa. It realistically, the fact that there's burnout with Terminator is because Hollywood just refuses to give Terminator you know a, any sense of breath air. I mean, and not to mention you just can't trying to you know make money based off nostalgia. It's like how many times can you do Terminator 2 nostalgia before it gets tiring? When Terminator 3 came out, it was like over a like it was like Jesus, 12 years after Terminator 2, to that point with the Terminator 2 was a nostalgic movie. It's like they're doing nostalgia for a movie that wasn't even 10 that was barely like over a decade old at that point. Rather than try to do something new and interesting with the Terminator series, they just did more of the same. When Salvation did something different, but then again, that I'm getting ahead of myself. Salvation did something different, but the reason why it didn't resonate with anyone because the movie sucked. It doesn't matter if the movie was the most original of the post Terminator 2 sequels. The directing was not very good. The setting for the movie just it didn't feel like Terminator. Like the way the designs for like Skynet's machines looked something you'd see straight out of Transformers and not out of Terminator. Like the aesthetic that people wanted to see were what we saw in the first two Terminator films. The dark and gritty future that we see. And the only media that's actually given us that is the video games and the comic books of Terminator that gave fans what they wanted to see out of the films. Like, the future war, the exploring the aspect of the Terminator universe beyond, the Connors. It's like the Terminator universe had potential to expand, but the franchise refused to branch out and do so. Sarah Connor Chronicles, on screen at least, is the most original of the Terminator, two sequels. If we want to call it a Terminator 2 sequel, for simplicity's sake, we'll call it that. Terminator, Sarah Connor Chronicles, at least it gave us different kinds of Terminators, and at least it explored different aspects of characters that haven't been explored before, and showed us a side of Skynet we never saw at this point. But it got canceled at the end of its second season, so there was never a season 3. The second season basically ends in a cliffhanger, and nobody knows how that series, how it would have ended, how it would have continued. The problem was Sarah Connor Chronicles. Of course, I've heard it from both people who like it and who don't, that when it was really good, it ended. And that's the problem with the Terminator franchise. Every good idea is never expanded upon. because it's abandoned. Rather than do a Genesis, they should have done a sequel to Salvation and fix whatever issues the first movie had of the Salvation trilogy, but they never did because they were afraid of doing something new and different. And another problem with the Terminator franchise after 2, the only movie that I could argue that was its own film on its own was Terminator 3. Terminator 3 is the only Terminator movie after 2 that wasn't concerned with setting up sequels, that wasn't concerned with setting up a trilogy. Terminator 3, you could argue, could have, yeah, it was not a good film, but Terminator 3 did show us how Judgment Day happened. And it probably was one of the best endings to the franchise ever was, the ending to Terminator 3. Now, when you compare that to the other films that came after it, like Salvation delivered on a promise and a premise that fans waited for over 20 years, to see, and it didn't deliver. Genesis was just a reboot, a back to square one. That was there was a second attempt at doing a trilogy. It failed. Dark Fate, but by that point, there's so many bridges have been burned with Terminator that the fans just got sick of it. And same thing with the public. They see Terminator Dark Fate, it's like, what the hell is this shit? It's another one of these films. Dark Fate didn't flop, contrary to what anti-SJWs want to say. It didn't flop because, oh my god, the movie's woke. It has women and blah 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 blah. It flopped because there had not been a good Terminator movie at that point in almost 30 years. And when you have that many bad movies, it does take its toll at some point. I mean, say what you will about the Star Wars films, whether you think the prequels are good or not is irrelevant. The prequels, were far more competent than the Terminator films after 2. And not to mention the stuff they set up, they expanded the universe, immensely. Unlike Terminator 3, which didn't do anything to expand the Terminator universe. Then, you had, I'm just gonna even as bad as the Star Wars sequels was, why did the Star Wars still persist and Terminator does it? Because Terminator was never meant to be a blockbuster. It was Terminator 2 was a one-hit wonder. Many people who saw Terminator 2 did not see the first one, and they thought, okay, this movie was pretty good, but that's it. Every movie after Terminator 2 just felt like a carbon copy of Terminator 2. Like, the franchise should have, ended with the second film, but it didn't because Hollywood wants to milk things no matter how many times it's been proven they can. Like, each film after, 3 made a decent amount of money, but there was diminishing returns after 3. Each film just made less and less. Dark Fate was it's just is it the best of the post Terminator 2 movies? That's debatable because some people say it is, some people say it's not. And of course, the fact that people say this is the canonological sequel to Terminator is nonsense. Because Dark Fate, it isn't any more canon than Genesis or Salvation, because the canon is subject to change. In all honesty, the Terminator franchise should have stopped after 2. That's just where I stand with the Terminator series. As much as I love the Terminator franchise, it should have ended with 2. 2 was a perfect place to stop. And if they wanted to do another Terminator film, they should have done one in the future war that would have connected with the first Terminator film. And it could have basically ended everything. Basically, everything is full circle. Like Terminator ends where it began. Where it began. That is what Terminator 3 should have been in the first place. Like the last film in the trilogy should have taken place in the future. Serves as a sequel and a prequel at the same time. That's what Terminator should have been. But unfortunately, we don't live in a world where things we can't leave well enough alone. The, the problem with killing John Connor in Terminator Dark Fate, it didn't fucking have any consequences. There was no consequences for the death of John Connor. There was like no consequences. It's like how many it's like first off, John Connor was like was important. He was like the messiah of the Terminator universe. He was like the Jesus Christ figure. If you're going to kill John Connor, there should have been serious consequences. Instead of, oh, he's dead, someone replaced him. It's like, okay, if John Connor can be disposed of, so can Danny Ramos. And that is something that's as ridiculous. If you want to have Danny Ramos been part of the story and have John Connor basically help train her, and they killed John Connor in the past because John Connor was the person that would ultimately train her, and she would end up succeeding him. With John Connor dead, Danny doesn't have the mentor that she would need to succeed John Connor. So in the future, like you could have done something really different and showed the consequences of John's death in 1998, and you could have ended the film with them undoing John's death. So John's is still an important part of the story instead of having him just, oh, he's dead, but he's fucking dead. Let's just ignore everything that was established, prior. Like if you're gonna make Danny Ramos important, then you should have made her as just as important as John. That without John to guide Danny Ramos, she never becomes the leader that she is destined to be because she doesn't have the training that she would have gotten under John Connor, and she would have eventually had been John Connor's successor. That's what you could have established, and you could have had a future where the Resistance is doing worse against Skynet than they would without John Connor. That way we could have actually given more importance to John Connor, that there would have still been a resistance, but the resistance would have not have been as strong as it would have been with John Connor. But John Connor is not important according to Dark Fate. John Connor is dead, and boom, it's like fuck you. John Connor's dead. He never mattered. It's like from a storytelling perspective, his death doesn't mean anything. You're gonna kill a character, you kill it. You have consequences. Because a character death with no consequences doesn't mean anything. Like when John Connor died, when I saw that, it's like they just did this for shock value. Shock value deaths don't mean shit after the first viewing. It especially doesn't mean anything when his death was like, it was leaked like almost a year in advance. That was leaked. So if you were going to like have John Connor be dead, give it actual meaning, show consequences. Death in fiction, I feel like if you kill off a character that's supposed to be important to us through the story, there needs to be consequences. It can't just be just another character death. It has to have meaning. And that's my thoughts on Terminator Dark Fate. Oh god, I keep forgetting about that. I can't give you a definitive answer, so I can't say. Yeah, we'll do it eventually. Yeah. This was kind of a fun stream. Not as much, not what I would have normally have done for my streams, but yeah. Anyway, I can't think of anything else to talk about, so I'm just gonna end this stream on a high note. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time with another stream. See you guys later, and may we live long and prosper. Thank you.